the world changed. There was two parts of the digital revolution that changed the business. One was print-on-demand publishing, where you didn't have to do big print runs to get the cost down. So my first book, first run was 2,500 books. Second run was another 2,500 books. It was called the second printing. The joke is, yeah, my book went to 2 printings because the first one was blurred. But no, so you would earn extra printings. But with print on demand, it's just as economical to print one book as the unit price on the 2,500 books.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link, found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book and Live Switch. Today, we're welcoming / preparing to learn from, let's see here, Henry. I'm going to try to say your last name. DeVries?
There you go. Henry DeVries.
We go.
With the cheese.
I love it. Of Indie Books International. And we're talking books and marketing and all that jazz. So, Henry, how is it going today?
It is so great. I'm so excited to talk about the virtues of a book, marketing with a book that you're proud of.
I love it. I love it. You know, you raise an interesting point here. I just want to give you a really quick anecdote before we run down the road of marketing with your book. I was given a book by someone that they were hustling as something, I suppose, like a business card, probably what we'll mention.
Sure.
And I had started reading it, and it was bad. It was really bad. And it's not to say the content itself was bad. I felt like it was very poorly written and not edited at all. So I saw this guy later at a different networking function. And I'm like, hey, man, your book was interesting. Who did you use for an editor? And he's like, oh, yeah, I edited it myself. I don't need to pay someone to edit it. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Fantastic. Way to go. You can totally tell. I didn't say that.
James, we have a saying, the world does not need another crappy self-published book.
Oh, I love that saying. That's perfect. That's perfect. So let's start with what you got going on, Henry. How long have you been in the book marketing world?
Indie Books International, we started on April 1st, 2014. I'd been a ghostwriter for books for years before that. So officially 11 years, publishing over 200 books in that time.
All right. Well, that's a fair number.
That is.
Any specific genre?
Yes, well, business books. So according to Barnes & Noble, there are 16 subcategories of books. And then since we're nonfiction, some of our books fall under self-help, or they'll fall under whatever industry the person is in. But it tends to be these nonfiction books to help business people find right fit prospects.
Right on. You know, it's interesting you say that. I assume, as you know, I wrote and published a book, and it was interesting because I use it essentially as a business card. But I had somebody ask me if I ever made money from the book, and I was like, no, no. I would love to be Stephen King or something like that, where you're making thousands of dollars every month off your book and to not have to fight to find a publisher. That was not the case. So in that nonfiction realm, I guess I'm saying that to say, I feel like in the nonfiction realm, that's more of the case rather than the fiction realm. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Well, in the nonfiction realm, it's all about marketing with a book. I didn't write the book marketing a book. I did it marketing with a book, meaning it's what happens as a result of the book. And our authors have found they've gotten returns of 400 to 2,000% ROI by marketing with a book and a speech. We like to say publishing the book is the starting line. The book is your ticket to ride. It's your ticket to get into the game.
I love it. Okay, so essentially what you're saying is the book is a marketing tool. You're not marketing the book. You're marketing with a book. Okay, that's way better clarification.
One of my authors made $1 million, and he didn't even care how many books he sold. But he gave away hundreds and hundreds of books. And that resulted in clients 5-figure clients, and that he says it adds up to over $1 million that he got as a result of being the author of that book, over and above
Awesome.
what he would have made.
I love it. All right. So let's dig into why someone would want to market with a book rather than throwing ads on the internet or a big billboard or cold calling or something of
Sure.
that nature.
Well, because you want to be seen as the authority in your space. For a certain group of people who have a certain problem, you're the authority. And you can't spell authority without the word author. So authors are respected because of the research they've done, the people they've talked to, and the results that they share. And then that attracts people, especially right fit prospects, to them. And they're not chasing the prospects. It's like a magnet that's attracting the prospects to them.
I love it. You mentioned self-publishing. Is that typically where
Yes.
you're steering people to, or what you're steering people to do?
Oh
Is to
no, we call
self-publish?
self-publishing the S word.
Oh,
It's even if you do it, don't ever say your book was self-published, because that has a stigma to it. It's like what crazy old grandpas do. You indie publish your book. You might cobble together a team to help you indie publish the book. The person in your example, he missed a big player in it, an editor, and there's different types of editors. I'm a developmental editor. I help people develop a manuscript, an idea, uh, how it would play in the marketplace, how to bake marketing into it. But you also need line editors, people who make sure that you don't use the wrong word or the style's right or a typo. James, I'll tell you, you triggered my all-time worst story of somebody who came up to me, was so proud of their book, and he handed me his book, and he said, "What do you think?" And on the cover, it said forward, FORWARD, by this name. Well, it's actually FOREWORD is a forward, a word that comes first in a book. So he had this major glaring typo on the cover of his book.
oh no.
And he said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I've got to point out, you have this glaring typo on the cover of your book." Oh, I printed 5,000 copies. What should I do? And I said, Fahrenheit 451. If you know science fiction and Ray Bradbury, that's the temperature books burn at. Fahrenheit 451, famous science fiction book. So I was telling him to burn 5,000 books, which he did, because I said, I don't even want you to give these away or donate them to some thrift store, because every time somebody sees your name and this book and that typo, it's bringing you down in the market. The same thing with a crappy self-published book where they said, "Oh, I can do it cheap." I said, "Okay, well, let's say you have a big speech and people have paid you $5,000 to come speak to them, and you got to wear something. Are you going to go to Goodwill and see if somebody donated something good that week? Or, maybe there's an Armani suit there, but it needs a knee patch. Are you going to go out with that?" Well, no, don't be ridiculous. Well, don't be ridiculous if the book is representing you in the marketplace, that you're going to cut corners and do a bad job. You might not be published by a traditional publisher. I have been with McGraw-Hill and my Warren Buffett book, but also there's this third alternative, the indie press, also known as the hybrid publishers. There are probably about 70,000 of us in the United States. So we bring the rigor of traditional publishing, but we can get a book out much faster, and you retain 100% ownership, and you get all the royalties. With McGraw-Hill, they give me 15% of the profit of the book, and they keep 85% when I can catch them. And it's very hard. They're pretty slippery. Publishers hate to pay royalties after the advance.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean when
Yeah.
you can catch
So
them? You have to keep calling them saying, "Hey, it's been a few months. I know we
well,
sold some books."
there's all these stories. It's like one guy, he was at a client, and the client had bought 250 copies of his book, and he's there. He had it, and he had the invoice in his hand, but he got zero royalties that quarter from his publisher. So he called the publisher and said, He said, well, we're so sorry. No copies of your book sold. He goes, I'm holding an invoice, a paid invoice for 250 books. And they said, well, that's our story and we're sticking to it. I had another author tell me this week about he did book clubs, and book clubs would buy his book. And there's probably 20 people in the book club. And several of these book clubs bought his book. And the publisher, for each book club, they listed it as one sale.
Oh.
So they gave him royalty for one sale when 20 books sold. So am I saying that a lot of traditional publishers are thieves? Not exactly, but you could look it up on the internet. A lot of authors will share their stories about that. I like to say my publisher has a 45 story tower in Manhattan, and they didn't get it by being generous paying their authors.
I always think of The Simpsons with Bill Gates, right? We didn't get rich by writing checks. Buy them out, boys.
We're the thing where he beat up Homer Simpson. It says, you didn't read the fine print and that when you accepted the terms.
Buy them out, boys. You know, it's interesting when you're talking about the impression that you're given as a business owner. I was teaching a business planning class years ago, and one of my students, I don't know, when we were talking about business cards, she came in the following week with some business cards that she had printed herself on an inkjet printer. You could still see the little perforations.
Yeah.
And she was so proud. And on this inkjet printer, you could see the bands of ink, like a weak or just rarely used inkjet printer put out. Yeah. So you can see like there's stripes on it. The perforations are still there. And I told her, you can't give these to people because they're going to laugh at you. And this was her first business. She had no idea. She was so proud that I got business cards. Like, throw those away. Because the first thing people are seeing is cheap, fly by night, not even worth the paper that they're printed on kind of thing. Spend the $25, get real business cards, step up your game. And I kind of felt bad because she was in tears after a little while. That was not my intention. But I felt like she had put so much in the design and the time, and she was so proud of herself. But when I pointed out the fact that people are going to look at these and compared to every other business card they've gotten, they look like the worst business card they've ever received. It's actually doing her a terrible disservice.
So many authors do themselves a terrible disservice with a book. Wrong title. That's one. I did a workshop in New York City, and this woman was there, and she worked in network television news in Washington, D.C., and she had this book, and the title of the book was Lose the Moo Moo. And I said, what is this book about? And she says, oh, there's a great story in chapter 3. It's about a woman who came on to be on national TV, and she's wearing a moo-moo. I said, yeah, they're never going to get to chapter 3. So what is this book about? She goes, well, Henry, you don't understand. She goes, every day people come up to me and they say, how do you get on TV? And the crowd there went, oh. I said, I have the title of your book. And she says, what? And I said, how do I get on TV? She said, oh, okay, or something like that. I said, no, that's what everybody's asking you. Did you hear the reaction in this crowd when you said it? But she said, I've published, I've printed up 5,000 copies of the book. What should I do with them? Class, Fahrenheit 451. I made her cry. 6 months later,
it's never intended, right? It just happens.
Yeah. 6 months later, she came up and said, I've got to thank you so much. I changed the title to How Do I Get on TV? And the book is just selling like hotcakes, and men and women buy the book. And it's produced a lot of business for my media consulting firm. And I train people when they go on TV, and, said, you're welcome, or as they say at Chick-fil-A, my pleasure. But a lot of people shoot their foot off with that problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the moment or the moment after you told her that advice, if someone were to ask, hey, what do you think of Henry? She'd be like, that jerk. But then 6 months later, someone's going to ask, what do you think of Henry? And she's going to say, this guy's a freaking genius. So it's interesting how sometimes you have to be...
6 months.
What's that?
Yeah. He's learned a lot in 6 months.
Fair.
So,
Fair.
James, I'm working on something because let me true confession here. There was this Silicon Valley executive, and he calls me up one day and says, are you Henry DeVries? Yeah. He goes, I want to hire you to do my book. I said, well, that's great. Why? He goes, well, I found 5 of your authors. I interviewed them, and I've decided to work with you. I said, well, I'm curious. What did they say? They all said the same thing. I said, well, now I'm really curious. What did they say? He said, they all said you were honest. Well, James, I'm all kind of proud. I thought, oh, honest, that's a good reputation to have. And then he said, yeah, one of them said he told you his idea for the book, and you said, well, nobody's going to buy that book. And I said, yeah, brutal honesty sometimes, but I'm working on the brutal part. I'm trying to be more kind in how I deliver the message. But I never lie to people. I'm not a yes person or, oh, this is great, greatest idea. We don't publish everybody who comes to us. People are surprised at that, but no. And I go, yeah, maybe 1 in 4. I agree to do 1 in 4 that comes to us. And
Oh, wow. Okay. So knocking away
growing.
75%.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's like, because, now as a joke, we've mentioned The Simpsons. My wife bought me a magnet. It's Krusty the Clown, and we have it on our refrigerator, and it says, I heartily endorse this product or service. So, that's Krusty. But we said, no, we're not going to be that business. We're going to be generous. That's going to be part of our brand. We're going to be fun. That's part of our brand. Family, we call the authors the family, and we help them promote each other. But we're not going to sell the dream. There's a lot of people make money off people. And I hear these sad stories all the time that, I spent $70,000 with a business coach. Somebody just told me that today and got nothing from it. Now I owe $70,000. So I can't retire because I've got to pay off the debt. So it's like, yeah, I heard. So we're not going to do that. We don't do that. And we back up with testimonials, and you can vet us and you can talk to people, and we'll show you case studies. I'd say, well, how could we be around for 11 years and have 200 clients? And 80% of our clients come from referrals.
Oh, it's incredible.
Like, well, it must work. I said, yeah, we found a little niche in the market that it's not so much how many copies you sell. Usually if you sell 1,000 copies in 3 years, you can break even on the publishing. But we've got recorded ROI of 4x to 20x, 400 to 2,000% if you look at it in that way. And
I suppose if you're talking about the resulting business, which is the point.
Resulting business. So you got it from consulting, you got it from paid speaking. An expert with a book should be speaking in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. And we train people on how to do that. And then training programs, my Hall of Fame speakers and other people say that's where the real money is at, because like we use the football analogy. Who's a good team right now? We'll say the LA Rams. Why do the LA Rams practice football every week? They know how to play football. It's because the games are so important. So, why do you work on getting better and do this all the time? Well, because it's so important, and you need to do that. Same thing with training. We're companies, like, it's not come in, do a 3-hour seminar, and now everybody knows what they need to do, whatever your area of expertise. It's the hybrid models. You come in, train them, and then do something online once a month where they go over what they did, or you role play with people and you keep at it. That's how you learn. So an author who's an authority on a subject can do that. So we also teach people the business models that are out there. I have people all the time come to me and, I say, what's the goal? Yeah, I don't know. Why do you want to do a book? Well, always thought people could do this, or maybe I can make money off doing a book. Those are the people we don't work with, because they need to get educated about this business of being an expert and an authority. And we offer training and articles, and I've written books. There's a lot of information out there. So it's a screening tool, because when we publish somebody's book, we're intimately involved with them for years. So we're like a fine winery that just does 36 cases a year. We only publish about 36 books a year
Okay.
because I've got a staff, and that's what's good. And could we do more? Sure, but the quality would go down and our reputation would go down. Sort of like the woman handing out the jet printed business cards. Um, Probably because she couldn't find a crayon to make her business cards.
Yeah, right. One step above that, or maybe behind,
Right,
depending.
right. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to be unkind to people, but this is a business. This is a business we've chosen, and you need to do research, and you need to do homework, and you need to be willing to try, and you need to get professional help. I don't mean psychiatric. I mean in getting the work done. Maybe the psychiatric too. Sometimes I feel like a therapist for some people, because it's hard to do a book. You people fall into the perfection trap. Well, my book's not perfect, or the comparison trap. It's not as good as Good to Great or Eat, Pray, Love, or the belief trap. Who am I to write a book, or what do I have to say? We have to get people through those traps to get out there and do the best book that they can, and then don't wait to be discovered. Mail out copies of the book every month to people who make a difference. Do showcase speeches where you're in front of a target rich audience and you're talking about the book. So we train people to do that. Get on other people's stages, or attend events where your target rich audience hangs out. You want to be there. And those are all the things we train people on.
I love it. Let's shift into your history. What was the first book that you published?
Well, the first book I wrote was in the 3rd grade. It was The Three Little Pigs Go to War, but I couldn't find a publisher for that.
Still looking.
Yeah, my first book, Self-Marketing Secrets, I co-authored that book in the 90s, and it was a modest business bestseller. And then, that was the first of 20 books that I've written. And then
you said in the 90s?
In the 90s, yeah.
So that was a whole different world from a publishing point of view.
Oh, it was. I had to have an agent.
Okay.
My co-author says, we had our first agent. She says, well, we're going to go up to Hollywood. We're going to meet this agent. And I said, does he have an open shirt and lots of hair and gold chains? She goes, oh, you've met him? I said, no, but I've met people like him. We went up there, but that didn't work out. And then we found a very serious person in San Diego, and he went after all these publishers to get our book published. But then the world changed. There was 2 parts of the digital revolution that changed the business. One was print on demand publishing, where you didn't have to do big print runs to get the cost down. So my first book, first run was 2,500 books. Second run was another 2,500 books. It was called the second printing. The joke is, my book went to 2 printings because the first one was blurred. No, so you would earn extra printings. But with print on demand, it's just as economical to print 1 book as the unit price on the 2,500 books. That change happened. Then the next change was Amazon.com. Jeff Bezos created the world's biggest bookstore. And we weren't competing to get into 200 Barnes and Nobles, which is now down to like 750, from 2,000 to 750 Barnes and Nobles. Everybody's computer was a bookstore. And the average Barnes and Noble will hold about 200,000 books, different titles. Last time I checked with Amazon, there were over 40 million titles for sale on Amazon. So it's created an explosion in authors. Also changed the economics that with the marketing with a book formula, you could have like 1,000 people interested in your book, and that could feed you for life, your business or whatever you're doing. You don't need to appeal to everybody. That's sort of the dream.
You don't
Everybody
sell 50,000 copies or anything like that.
No. Well, the one guy I talked about made $1 million. He just gave away hundreds of books. He, when he got a royalty check from me, he was kind of like surprised, and What one person said, when I used to get your royalty checks, I'd go buy pizza, and then I started going to Costco. But my real money was I upped my speaking fees from 2,500 to 7,500 a speech, and that's where the real money is.
That's fair. Yeah, to make up $5,000, you got to sell a lot of books to make up that kind of money.
Yeah, especially if you're traditional like me. My royalty on the Buffett book is $1.50, but I have a co-author, so I get 75 cents. Yeah, you gotta sell a lot of books.
And that's
So
trusting
for one
the
speaking engagement, I make 5 to 10 when I go out to speak professionally.
very nice. So when did the whole indie book publishing realm come around? Because it wasn't in the 90s, was it?
No, it wasn't in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, I started writing about it. And one of my clients was Hart Hanks, which is a $1 billion traded company and media company. And they really had all this equipment for print on demand publishing. And I learned about that because I helped them market that concept. And then it really went diverse. And then, we really didn't have much of an internet. It started in '93, World Wide Web, but it wasn't into the 2000s that it started to get traction. And Amazon came along, and Jeff Bezos said, "Your margin is my opportunity."
I
So he
remember
looked at
that.
all those inefficient bookstores and what they were making on books, and he could pay a higher royalty and make more than the bookstore selling, and just became a master of logistics. Um, and
Well, there's a
and
lot of
there's not
hands in
one
that
place
pot.
that, yeah,
Yeah, when you had
there's a lot out there.
agent, publisher, all the people that are working for the publisher, the salespeople, the marketing people, all that
Sure,
jazz,
sure,
let
yeah,
alone the
yeah,
editors, book designers, all that jazz,
yeah.
warehouses, distribution. You get rid
Oh, there's a
of,
lot of people who would like to sell all that stuff to you as an independent author, and we like to say they have plans for your money.
it's interesting because when I pumped out a book just as a practice on Amazon. So I did the S word thing,
Yeah,
self-published, mainly because I'm impatient. I mean, my sister's a published author. She's got agent and publisher and all that kind of stuff. And I got the what do I have to do from her. And my
yeah,
thought was, wait, how long does that take? And what are the variables that I don't have control over? Nah, screw that. I'm just going to go self-publish. So
right.
I pumped out this book and it was just an experiment to see how the whole thing works. And I just got inundated with all these publishers and these book marketers and stuff like that saying for just $10,000, we'll do all this, that, and the other thing. And I remember
We'll make it
asking
good.
one of the marketers, like, hey, man, this $10,000 seems like you got a good email here. How many books do I have to sell to break even? And then I'm not in the game of breaking even. I'm in the game of making money. So how am I going to
Sure.
double that? How many books do I sell to make 20 grand? And can you promise that you can make that happen? Like, no, there's no promises. All I can
Sure.
promise is that I'll take your money.
Yes.
So it's interesting game
Yeah.
that the indie
There's
people popped up.
we work with publicity firms and marketing firms, and it's common knowledge, and the honest, legit ones will say it, is there is no way that you will earn back in royalties the money you give us to market this book. The
That's an
money
honest
is
answer right there.
what happens as a client. So I'll have conversations with people, and I'll say, how much do you make from a new client? And then I'll say, so how many clients would you have to get for this book plan to make sense? And if they say one, I go, well, what would you like to do? Because I'll say, do you think if you're a published author and you spoke more and you had some publicity around that, you would get one more client than you have right now? Well, he said, well, of course. I said, what do you want to do? So if you are in the trust business where you're selling your expertise, you're a management consultant, you're an advertising agency, you're a health tech consultant, you're one of these people, you're in the B2B space, And the book is more than a calling card. The book is the greatest brochure. I was once at a big technology conference. I'm also a journalist. I worked for Forbes Digital, and now I work for the California Business Journal. And I was covering this big conference in Las Vegas, and I was in the press room, and everybody had their folders with their brochures and colored products, and I'm at a table making some notes, and I'm sitting next to the trash can. And I saw journalist after journalist pick up the folder, kind of flip through it, and throw it in the trash. And I'm thinking like, oh, they just threw, I don't know, $50, $100 in the trash. I thought, what if they'd put it in a book? One, it'd be more compact, it'd be more respectable, and two, you don't throw books away. You'd probably stack the book back up on the table or something. But our fourth grade teacher, Sister Mary Elizabeth, or mine was Mrs. Bandy, taught us that you don't destroy books. So I thought, well, how much would that book cost? Well, to print it, $6. It's more trustworthy than the folder full of crap, as we used to say. So that was some of the genesis for the idea for Indie Books International.
That's awesome. So how do you differentiate yourself from other indie book publishers? Because they seem to pop up, I don't know, 5 million a day or something like that.
Yeah, it's sort of like that joke when I worked at the university about investment bankers, that we were going to start to use investment bankers in research rather than lab rats, because one, they're plentiful, and two, there's some things a rat won't do. So with indie publishers, yeah, there's 70,000 of us last I checked. So what I decided to do different was to say that publishing the book is the starting line, and we stay with you as your marketing advisor. And we have this family of 200 authors that we get them together, and you cross market with them, and they hear you speak, and then they can recommend you as a speaker. So that's what we created. We have 2 live events, some author expert conferences we do. We're sponsored by the University of California, San Diego, and we do our conferences there in San Diego, and then we do online things to help people. And then my ghostwriters all have a business journalism background. So they've been with Forbes and Inc. and Entrepreneur Magazine and New York Times. So we've got these people. And then the training people for our speakers, my business partner is the past president of the National Speakers Association. He's trained 1,000 professional speakers. One of my authors is the first female president of the National Speakers Association. I've got a dozen chapter presidents of the National Speakers Association, several Hall of Fame members from the National Speakers Association, and then I've got 3 world champions from Toastmasters International, and they teach the business of speaking. So we have this faculty, if you will, that are in the marketplace. They're in the arena, to quote Theodore Roosevelt. They're out there on the lecture circuit, and they help make connections for people and make introductions, and also teach you this is the level you've got to be at. So I used to say, I don't know, this might have been pre-COVID, but I used to say, if you want to catch a cold, I suggest you go to urgent care, because you're going to surround yourself with people with a cold. If you want to catch success, hang out with people who are successful at what you want. So we've got that together. So with these successful people. So thanks for asking. I think that is our competitive advantage, is the Indie Books family of authors.
That's incredible. Tell me, you alluded to it a little bit, but I want to ask you more specifically. Tell me about the marketing funnel that you're bringing your authors through to get them successful, whatever they measure that success by.
So you don't mind if I give you some pushback, do you?
No, please, by all means.
We don't use the word funnel at Indie Books.
Man, I'm just giving all kinds of bad words here. We got self-publishing.
I know, you use the F word and the S word. So the funnel is the F word. Yeah, I know. We'll wash your mouth out with soap later. So we use a staircase. And our staircase message is the first thing you do is you publish a book, and you give away a lot of books. You don't wait to be discovered. You get the books in the hands of people who can get you on a podcast, book you as a speaker, hire you. And then the next thing you do is you put on monthly events on the internet, which are Q&As about the topic of your book. And you form a community around your subject. And then the next thing you do is some kind of paid training. Can I give away $365? I'll do it right now, James. I
Yeah.
do a monthly class. It's a 2-hour class, and it's the book kickoff class. It's the 7 questions you have to answer before you can write a book or promote a book. And if they mention your name, I will comp people in. There's no code or anything. You have to send an email to me, Henry at indiebooksintl.com or Henry at persuadewithastory.com. Either one of those, I will comp you into the class. Okay, we haven't spent much yet. Then, if you need somebody to be an editor, that starts around $5,000, where I'll work with people for 3 to 6 months. If you need somebody to actually go out and help you write the first draft, that's around $10,000. I fly to wherever you're at, and we spend 3 days together, and we
Oh,
produce a
wow.
first draft of the book. And if you want ghostwriting, that's that depends on how long the book is, but can be 20,000. Most people need a developmental editor. They don't need a ghostwriter. A ghostwriter, though, if you're the CEO of a company, if you own a big ad agency or something like that, it would be malpractice for you to take all the time out to write a book. You get somebody on your team who knows how to write books, who can interview you, who can transcribe it, who can draft it, and you take that work off your plate. So you do what you need to do, which is we have a saying: if you're not on the mic, we aren't making money. Which other means if you're not speaking, if you're not presenting, if you're not on a phone call to somebody, the company is not making money. It's not making money when you're writing a book.
Oh,
So
I love it.
farm that out to somebody else. One CEO said, "I feel kind of guilty, Henry, because he was a home builder, building homes." I said, "Oh, okay, Buck, why do you feel guilty?" "Well, you know, my name is on this, but you did most of the work." And I said, "Oh, well, let me ask you a question. How many homes are you going to build this year?" He said, 1,000. I said, "Wow, Buck, your arm is sure going to get tired from all that painting and hammering." He said, "Don't be silly. You know that I'm going to have people build 1,000. I have people with tools who'll do that." And I said, "Well, think of me as your tool. I'm your tool to get the book done. But it's your words, your thoughts, your inspiration to get the book done." So that's what I like people to think beyond that. And then also, the highest compliment I got was from an author with the first name of Henry, by the way. But Henry said, "Finding you was like finding an uncle in the business. You looked out for
Oh,
me. You made introductions. You did all these extra things above and beyond the agreement that you were going to help me write and publish the book." Um, so I have office hours where I meet with my authors every week. I do monthly events where they can get educated on things. Twice a year I have online retreats, and I don't charge for any of that to my authors.
nice. Tell me a story about the ghostwriting to get the voice of, let's say, would you say the guy's name was Buck? How do you get
Buck.
the voice
So
of Buck as
I
a
got a
ghostwriter?
call one day, James. I got a call one day, and a guy said, "Is this Henry DeVries?" And I said, "Yes." "Henry DeVries, the ghostwriter?" I said, "Well, yes." He says, "Well, my story takes place in an old mansion on October 31st. It's a thunderstorm, and they're having a seance in the parlor to contact the spirit of the departed owner." And I said, "I have to stop you right there. I'm not that type of ghostwriter. What I am is a business book ghostwriter. Business leaders hire me to interview them, have them do the book, and basically be invisible. I don't say I ghost wrote their book. They usually thank me as their editor in the acknowledgments page. I want to thank my editor, Henry DeVries of Indie Books. And that's where I get thanked. And I'm okay with that because from an early age, I got excited about getting ideas in print. First my own, but then other people. My sister doesn't understand it. She goes, why don't you just spend all this time writing books and speaking and doing all that. Why are you helping all these other people? I said, I get just as much a thrill from helping them. And it's a noble work, because think of all the people who've been helped because I helped these people manifest a book that solves problems for all these other people.
Very
So,
true.
yeah. So we're doing that. So what you don't want to do is be the writer who puts it in their voice. It's a real skill to be able to interview somebody. And this is why I insist on recording and transcribing, because I want to capture their language and their nuances. So when you read the book, you feel like you had a conversation with that author because it sounds like them. And when you meet them, one of the problems is sometimes people say, yeah, I read the book, but the person I met, that's not there's a disconnect. It's not the same person. And sometimes it was just that person trying to be more polished or use different words or more fancy, highfalutin words than they normally use. And people see through that. So a great ghostwriter. I made a mistake once in I ghost wrote a column. I worked for a advertising PR agency. I wrote a column for the president, and it was very funny and it was very well received. But somebody who knew both of us said, "Oh, nice column. It didn't sound like Ronnie. It sounded like you." And that was their way of saying, yeah, that's not what you need to do. So from there on, I really worked hard at capturing the other person's voice and making it the best that they could be.
Right on. Right on. I want to shift gears here because we don't have a ton of time. I want to
Okay.
ask you about the dread. I'm going to dare say another word that you're not going to like. Tell me about the world of AI and how this messes with or changes the landscape of the
The
business
AI
environment.
word.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, no, I do a lot of books for financial advisors, people who own wealth management firms and all this. And there's a certain group out there that's using AI to write books, and they're putting templates out on this, and they're sort of basically saying the same thing. It's an echo chamber, I call it, or regurgitation. Um, and it's just another extension of that bad business card story, because is that what you want to represent you in the marketplace? And also, Amazon has a policy against publishing AI generated books, and programs like Grammarly can spot if material is plagiarized or if it's AI created. um, I like to say AI is like your drunken uncle. Sometimes they say something good, but a lot of times they're just hallucinating. They don't know what they're saying. Um, so you have to do it. Now, AI is a tool, like fire, like electricity. What's electricity can cook a man's dinner or can cook a man. It depends if you use the tool wrong.
Right.
Um, yeah. So it's great for brainstorming or coming up with creative ideas, maybe for headlines or chapter heads and subheads and all that. We'll play around with things with AI with that, uh, but we're clear that, and I have all my people sign a policy that they're fully disclosing how they're using AI, and here's all the things that they can't do with AI. Um, because it's like those students in college, like, oh, what a shortcut. Um, that I could get this done in half the time. No, the people who hire us, because I'm a Amazon.com best-selling author in 4 categories for the Warren Buffett book. They want a best-selling author to help them with their book. Uh, and as far as I know, AI didn't get a best-selling book on Amazon.
Fair. Fair. Does it, I guess, does it get used with book cover design or editing or anything
It
else
can.
besides the actual writing of the book?
Yeah. Um, I saw an interesting book that had illustrations throughout it, and all the illustrations were AI generated. Um, and I've seen the commercials, from AI and everything, so it's getting amazing on art. Um, but for the most part, we have art directors who've worked for major publishers, and they might get some help or inspiration from AI on their thumbnails. But the one thing is, and I've seen this happen, you don't want your product to look like anybody else's product. I saw this once where there's, you can go to Getty and buy images, and two different publishers use the same image on the cover.
Henry, I appreciate your time here. Yeah, this has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur and all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. And we got liveswitch.com to help you talk with your employees, talk with your clients, talk with your customers with live video. If you're listening to this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, give us a big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, and especially those friends that have a business. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.